Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Today we're test driving something pretty special in my opinion. This is the new plug-in hybrid Range Rover SE. 51 miles of electric range, a lot of gasoline turbocharged horsepower, hybrid operation, and luxury to boot. So we're gonna have a good look at it inside and out. We're gonna take it for a drive, and then I'm gonna tell you what I really think. Range Rover has always been a brand to me that has been perennial, not only in its design, but in what it offers. Now they have a lot of different models on the market. They have more traditionally styled and outfitted models like this in terms of its shape and its design. And they now have a lot of sportier models, and with the Discovery series, some pretty butch ones too. But what we have right here is the 2023 Range Rover SE plug-in hybrid. And what does that mean? Well, as tested, we're at 126 and some change. This starts out at 110,000, but this has a number of options, and you'll be seeing a lot of those float across your screen as we go through our review. It's a beautiful shade of green. It has a black painted roof. Under the hood is a twin turbocharged 3-liter V6, and it has an 8-speed automatic transmission. Between those two is a powerful electric motor that is powered by a number of battery packs, a cluster of them, underneath the floor. And because of the way they've designed those battery packs, the traditional 4-wheel drive drivetrain remains, and you have all the capability that you've always expected from a Range Rover. But here you got the extra added benefit of up to 51 miles all electric power. Then it switches over to be a hybrid. When it comes to design, this is traditional Range Rover. Look at it. It looks very much the same as it might have looked 20 or 30 years ago, save for the more modern touches and design details. And look at some of these here on the front of the door, a nice embellishment that can be customized with different shades, colors. And look at the way the near flush mounted glass comes together with a lot of the lines, the way the hood wraps over. Wheels on this one, 21-inch alloys, and those are big. And the grille, gloss black on this particular one with LED lighting all around, and it's some very good LED lighting, I'll say. These door handles are of a flush variety. When you lock it, they sink in, and when you unlock it, well, they pop out. And so they give you the ability to grab and open, but they hide away not only for aerodynamics, but security when it's locked. From the rear 3/4 view, I think we can see one of the trademark design DNA elements that Range Rover has pretty much always had since I could remember, the very stately and upright roofline at the rear. The faces have changed over the years, and a lot of the little details have changed over the years, but when you look at that rear 3/4 view, you know you're looking at a Range Rover. It's just, this is a vehicle that I could see King Charles sitting in the back of, waving out the window, and it would just fit. And it wouldn't look like he was being over the top or ostentatious. It's just very simple, modern, and crisp. And with the black roof that this has, I think it really works with the all black and nearly flush glass that we've got. At the back, this does have a power lift gate. You press the button, and this actually opens up in 2 halves. You've got an upper piece, and once that gets out of the way, a lower tailgate comes down. And we've seen that before on not only Toyota Land Cruiser, but other Range Rovers. Charging, that is on the driver's side. You can charge this up. You can see the charging metrics there on the screen. You have to back into where the charger is though. I prefer those to be on the front, but it matches the one that is on the passenger side, which is where you actually put gasoline in. One other feature that this has that I've just got to talk about before we get on the drive, because I actually want you to see it, is the all-wheel steering. Yeah, so this is a big SUV, but when you're in a parking lot, when you're in your neighborhood, you can turn this thing around on a dime almost because of that rear axle steering. Look at that, isn't that impressive? For its size, it has a very small turning radius, just under 36 feet. Now at speed, these wheels will actually turn parallel instead of opposite, allowing you to change lanes and do other high-speed maneuvers a little bit more stable. So it's something that a lot of cars are beginning to get right now, and it's a welcome feature here on the Range Rover. All right, my friends, now it's time to take a drive. So the first question I always like to ask is, how does it go? So we're going to come to a complete stop and go. Nice. And 60. Now Range Rovers say 0 to 60 in about 5.9 seconds. That's about what it feels like. My results might be a little bit different, and that's simply because air conditioning's on and, well, results always vary. This is an EV mode. I have charge on the battery, but you might have noticed the gasoline engine starting up and becoming part of our experience there. And that's because if you ask for full power, it's going to wake up the gasoline engine even if you're on EV mode. And so basically the way this works is you charge this up, you leave your garage or wherever you charged it up, and you've got 51 miles of electric only range. And the way the system works, it always defaults first to use that electric range. And then once that electric range is depleted, it then begins operating as a conventional hybrid vehicle. So you'll still be operating on and off electric mode, and the gasoline engine will be coming on and off. But in electric mode, you exclusively have that electric power unless you ask for full acceleration, at which point it brings the engine in. And I find that the system works pretty seamlessly. And even when the gasoline engine is running and you're driving around with it power on, power off, it's a very refined engine. The switch between electric and gasoline power, and when they're both operating, is pretty refined. They've done a good job of making it all work. And so when you come to a stop, occasionally, when you're in hybrid mode, that engine's going to come to a stop and air conditioning is running off of electric power, so it doesn't actually stop being cold, which is a great big bonus. And I have to point out the fact that with 51 miles all electric range, it is the longest electric range of any plug-in hybrid I have ever tested, and I believe might be the highest of any on the market. 434 horsepower, 457 pound-feet of torque. It is no slouch when it comes to horsepower. And that power comes on in a way that's very dignified and expected in a vehicle like this. And you've got the horsepower of, well, a nice big V8. I love that. Now, when it comes to fuel efficiency in hybrid mode, this is rated at 21 mpg, which isn't the kind of hybrid mpg you're going to expect from a Prius or something like that, but this isn't one. This is a big, near full-size SUV. So this is a powertrain that I am very impressed with from the standpoint of how it works technically. I'm very impressed with this electric range. That is big, huge electric range for a plug-in hybrid. And I'm also very impressed with not only its power, but its refinement level. It's very much what you'd expect in a vehicle of this stature. This powertrain gets 5 out of 5 stars. Now, when it comes to ride, drive, and handling, this is a vehicle that, like Mercedes, like BMW, has a feel and a character all its own. Typically, when it comes to Range Rover vehicles, I have always felt that they've had this sort of roly-poly, soft, pillowy ride, especially when you're on comfort mode. And this has a number of drive modes, from comfort to dynamic, and all manner of drive modes for off-roading. And we're not really going to get into that here so much, but you can trust that being a Range Rover, it's got all of the capabilities off-road when it comes to traction and suspension, and that includes this adjustable suspension. And so you can raise and lower the ride height, and you can set the stiffness and the response levels to your drive mode preferences. So the ride drive around the neighborhood is just quite amazing, with not only this quiet, pillowy ride, but the quiet action of electric mode. It's really something quite regal, if I might say so. And I've driven a lot of electric cars, but for some reason this has just a different kind of feel and character to it. Now obviously when you switch it up to dynamic, which is a more equivalent of sport mode, you're using full power of the engine, this thing can wake up and really become quite engaging. What I will tell you is that around town, I do notice that there are some rattles and creaks in this structure when you hit potholes, manhole covers, and speed bumps and things like that. It can get a little bit harsh. That's part and parcel to the 21-inch wheels, but when you do hit a bump of some kind, you do know it, even though this generally has that pillowy ride personality. Out on the highway, it's very quiet, 55.9 decibels on our 70-mile-an-hour freeway test. That is on the lower side of all of the vehicles that we test, on the low side of average. And so it's quiet, it's stable, it's comfortable, and it does allow you the personalization to set the ride and driving characteristics the way you want them. They've done a good job there. And as we talked about at the beginning, this all-wheel steering really makes this totally maneuverable, not only in parking lots, but even in tight neighborhoods like this where we've got tight windy curves and things like that. So this is a chassis that's very much buttoned down. It's very much fitting of the price tag in the way of its handling, its character, its refinement. And I do dare say that it drives like very little else out there on the market. It's got its own personality. This chassis gets 5 out of 5 stars. And before we get to the interior, I want to talk about the 51-mile range just for a minute. I want to geek out for you just a little bit. The reason the 51-mile range is such a significant number, not only because it's higher than virtually anything else you can get in the plug-in hybrid market, it's because the California clean car rules, which are going to start taking effect in 2025, require that if a plug-in hybrid is to be considered a zero-emission vehicle, it has to have an all-electric range minimum of 50 miles. At the moment, no other vehicle that I'm aware of meets that standard now. So in 2025, when those laws start taking effect and phase into full maturity at about 2035, any plug-in hybrid, for it to be counting towards a manufacturer's ability to comply with those rules, for it to be considered a zero-emission vehicle, a plug-in hybrid has to have a 50-mile range. This one does already. So this vehicle, in addition to a future electric vehicle from Range Rover, which is actually due in the next year or so, those two vehicles in the early stages of the phase-in for the new clean air rules will help Range Rover qualify and easily make the mark. And about 17 other states participate in that program. So there's a little geek out for you on that. If you want to learn more, you can obviously search Advanced Clean Cars 2 on your favorite internet search engine. You can learn all about it. We also have a video about it on our channel. Now we can find a place to park and talk about this interior in a little bit more detail. Now we're in my favorite quiet place in the city to talk about the Range Rover without distractions, visual or otherwise. So the interior of the Range Rover is a place that I've always been happy to be in, no matter which model I've ever driven, because the level of craftsmanship, design, and creature comforts is always very high with Range Rover, and this vehicle is no exception. If you look around, you can see it's got all the latest tech, big digital screen for the instrument cluster, big digital center screen for the infotainment and human interface, and high quality materials and finishes everywhere else. High quality switch gear. Now when it comes to the upholstery and trim in here, there's something a little bit different than what I might have expected in a Range Rover. I grew up in the old days. Decades of Range Rovers have always had sumptuous aromatic leathers, right? They've had wood, they've had these nicely hand-stitched sort of clubhouse interiors. So I get this one, and if you look at the window sticker, the material on these seats, the dash, the door panels, is what's called non-leather. Non-leather. Basically, it's the vegan choice. So manufacturers generally believe that luxury high-end customers of electric or plug-in hybrid electric vehicles typically don't want to have leather in their vehicles. They want to have a little bit more of a progressive ideology in the materials used in their vehicles. And I get it, okay? I've been accused of being woke, particularly by my husband, but when it comes to my vehicles, my preference is to have dead cows and dead trees in here when I get into my Range Rover. So I do miss the leather. I miss the smell of it, the feel of it. This material, while it looks plenty handsome, a nice sort of denim trim on the sides and a perforated trim in the center, it kind of feels like neoprene, like a wetsuit. And while I like wearing neoprene in the right context, somehow in this $100,000 plus luxury vehicle, it seems a little bit out of place. It really honestly looks and feels like it really belongs lining something that I buy at REI or Big Five. So that really is my only complaint relative to the materials in here. I just miss the leather and the wood. Now, as I sit here, getting these seats to a comfort level, regardless of how they're finished, they have a lot of adjustment, but I wasn't quite able to get what I wanted this week. They tend to be a little bit pillowy and a little bit full. You don't sit in these seats, you sit on them. And of course, this vehicle is a vehicle that you sit on anyway. You look down on the hood, you look down on everything around you. And I don't mean that morally, I mean that physically. You're not sitting down in this vehicle, but these seats add to that experience by not really holding you. You're sitting on them no matter how you adjust them. And so I did struggle with that a little bit this week. Now, the steering wheel, very high quality, good switch gear. It's got paddle shifters on it. And of course, looking forward to that instrument cluster, a good view. It's a nice, handsome design with great graphics. And you can customize the information that you see on it. Over here, nice big 13-inch center screen. Below it, heart controls for the HVAC. And here I got these covers closed, but if you open this, down inside is a cubby for your phone. There's a wireless charger in there. Behind it, a toggle shift selector, start-stop button, volume knob for the infotainment system, and the drive mode selector off to the right. Here, cup holders down inside. And inside here, this one happens to have a cooler inside what would normally be a big storage box. And while you can store things in there, you can actually throw a few cans of Red Bull or whatever you're drinking on the road in there and keep that cool. It's got a nice cooling feature in there. So that does take some space up that would otherwise be storage. Now, the back seat, does it look like I'm lounging back here? Well, that is because I am. This has the executive package, which not only gives us heated and cooled front seats and everything else we'd expect, but we've got heated and cooled rear seats, but there's more. This center console has a huge touchscreen at the center that allows me to control infinite number of things that affect my comfort and my well-being back here. To make myself a little bit more comfortable for talking to you, I can adjust the recline on this seat. There are controls over here on the door that duplicate that which the driver and the front passenger would have, as well as memory settings. On the center console, you'll also find controls for the climate control. You can completely adjust your climate back here. There are vents up here, vents down on the rear of the center console, and you can also adjust these blinds on the side of the door. Lighting, infinite number of things. That's why this package costs so much. It really coddles the rear seat passenger. So if you just really want to make your mother-in-law happy, or you are in the business of chauffeuring people, this is the option for you. And there's more. You can press this button here and it extends, and it gives you cup holders here in the center. There's also storage down inside here, and there's additional ports for charging. And there's also an electrical outlet down on the bottom, so you can plug in a laptop or something like that. As we look at the cargo area in the back, let's call it the boot for context. We're in the English vehicle, of course. On the right, there are controls so that you can fold this second row set of seats forward and increase your cargo space back there. Underneath the floor on this particular one is optioned a full-size spare. Can you believe it? Even with a plug-in hybrid, they have given us space for a full-size spare with a matching wheel nonetheless. It's not even a mini spare, so I find that quite impressive, especially on an SUV, that not only might we be out adventuring in a place without cell service, but we wouldn't want to be seen. It might be unseemly to be seen driving back to civilization with one of those little mini spares on. So I'm glad they've given us a matching wheel and tire so that we can roll up to the red carpet, even having gotten a flat and looking good. So when it comes to this interior, the craftsmanship, the level of creature comforts is very good. The switchgear are very high quality, and the design, everything you'd expect from Range Rover. If you've had Range Rovers before, you're going to feel perfectly at home in here. And you know, maybe if you get leather and you want that, you might feel more at home. I would. We've had that conversation. But this is an interior that could use some improvements in the versatility area, could use some improvements here and there as we drove around. There were some squeaks and creaks in here. So a good design, a good place to be, but I am left wanting for a few more refinements. This interior gets 4 out of 5 stars. When it comes to the human interface and infotainment system, this has a nice large 13-inch screen. It looks like it's got a little bit of a curvature to it as well, so it's very handsome and fitting with the design of the vehicle. It's fully featured. It has Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, it's wireless. It has Alexa backend for all of the cloud services, navigation, of course Bluetooth connectivity, and it has this awesome sounding Meridian audio system. As you go through the menus, there are plenty of different screens that you can look at, a lot of controls that you can set. The graphics are good, the menus are well laid out, easy to understand, easy to learn. It is very easy to jump right into this vehicle and get to it. I love that. And once you do get to use it, it becomes second nature, and getting into the audio and maybe choosing stations, things like that, it's all very intuitive, all very easy to do, and graphic. I love that. And of course, you do have some hard controls on the steering wheel and a hard control for the volume over here. So they've done a good job of giving you multiple ways in which to control this. When you get to the cameras, there's good graphics there, and there's a lot of different choices as to how you can use those cameras, particularly when you get to the off-roading part. And I didn't really get into off-roading today with the vehicle, but suffice it to say, there's a lot of ways you can use this screen to not only see what the vehicle's doing, but to get views of what's going on outside the vehicle, not to mention utilizing this for controls for suspension and other things, and seats. Just about everything that you can control on this vehicle with a switch or a knob someplace, you can also duplicate here on the screen. So this is extremely well done for as complex as it is. This infotainment system and user interface, it gets 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, now's the time in the conversation when we talk about value. Is it worth the money? And it's always sort of a delicate conversation to have with a luxury vehicle, in my opinion, because you don't need it, right? You can get 2 or 3 of another SUV that performs all of the tasks that this can do for a lot less money, but you're spending here for not only the style and the luxury, but the brand and the image and what it's like to live with every day. Because unlike a lot of other cars out there, this is a brand and a vehicle that has a lot of characteristics that you cannot get anywhere else. Mercedes, BMW, they also offer something completely different in their own right, just like this brand does. And so a lot of people buy these over and over again because they really like them. It's not because they want to be seen. It's not because the image, it's because they're actually good vehicles and they offer something just a little bit different. So when I look at things like warranty coverage, when I look at performance, appeal, all of the things that do a spreadsheet value score, some of it seems kind of silly to contemplate because this is a luxury item. But nonetheless, when I look at all of these things and sort of consider all the things we've already talked about, I put value here at 4 out of 5 stars as tested with its price. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the total review. Excellent. That is a very good score for a vehicle. It really almost fires on all cylinders. And the fact that this has got such a long range for electric really makes it a standout, in my opinion. Definitely worth a look until we have fully electric models on the market. This is the next best thing. So there you go, our review for the plug-in hybrid Range Rover SE. Now, if you like what we do, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there. If you're not ready to commit just yet, see our latest video right there. Either way, stay tuned.